Let's build your Google Ads campaigns. Timestamps below, along with some other helpful links and resources we'll be referencing throughout this guide. We're going to go through setting up your first campaigns, finding the perfect keywords, creating something called ad extensions, and of course, going through a strategy to optimize your campaigns as they run over the next few weeks and months. So let's go ahead, jump into my screen. We're going to go to ads.google.com. Here you can sign into your existing account, continue your account setup, or create your account for the first time. So go ahead and jump to this timestamp if you've already created your account and you just want to get into the settings. So here I am at ads.google.com, and going to go ahead and click on Start Now. Now, when it comes to your email, just use whatever Gmail address you're going to use for business. You can always change this later, and you can add users later. So don't feel like you're getting locked into anything here. I'll go ahead and skip the login process. And here you're going to see a list of all the accounts that you have access to. So you can see we have my management account, which is for our agency. We have an account set up in progress. So if you start this process and you don't finish it for whatever reason, this is where you're going to click to continue your setup. Or you can go ahead and click on to create a new account. There's currently not a limit to how many new accounts you can set up. Just create one account for each website or business that you have. So we'll go ahead and click on New Google Ads Account here. And Google is going to have this beautiful onboarding process for us to help us craft the perfect campaign, and we're definitely going to ignore it. So what you want to do is come down to the bottom here, and you're going to look for something called Switch to Expert Mode or Manual Mode or whatever on earth they're calling it, because this page keeps changing. But what you want to do is skip this entire onboarding process because you want both hands on the steering wheel. You have YouTube University, you have all the help that you need, even if you don't finish watching this really long one. So we'll go ahead and switch to expert mode. And once you get to a page that looks something like this, you're ready to actually start building your campaigns. And of course, if you already had an account set up, this is the page that you would see right after you clicked Create New Campaign from your campaign's dashboard. And so however you got here, we're going to go ahead and click on Create Campaign without goals or guidance. Now, even if you want leads, you want website traffic, you're trying to promote your app, this is a place where you want to have both hands on the steering wheel, and you always want to make sure that you have all of the options available to you and not let Google just make decisions arbitrarily for you. So we'll go ahead and click on Continue here, and then we're going to select Search because we want to create ads that show up when someone goes over to Google and types in a search like Men's Watch or Facebook Advertising Agency. You can check out the link in the cards in the description to a super deep dive video on how to actually create video ads here on YouTube, which is my second favorite type. And make sure you subscribe because we have lots of other tutorials coming on these other ad types. So we'll go ahead and click on Continue here. Now it's going to ask again what result you're after. Go ahead and skip this. You don't have to select anything. You're going to make these decisions later on when it comes to your bidding strategies and the types of keywords that you use. So we'll go ahead and click on Continue here. And now it's time to give our campaign a name and start going through all of the settings. So we'll quickly talk about how Google organizes everything inside of Google Ads. So right now, we are at the very top. We are at the campaign level right now. And so at the campaign level, we're going to decide how much we're going to spend on the campaign overall. We're going to decide the locations, and we're going to decide the networks. We're also going to decide the time of day that we want our ads or ad groups to run. And then we'll come back to this diagram as we go through your ad groups and your ads. So if you need to run campaigns to multiple locations, or there's a setting that we're about to go through that's really important to you, well, just keep in mind that it's going to apply to all of your ads and all of your ad groups. So just keep that in mind when you're figuring out how many campaigns you should make. So I'll go ahead and kick things off by giving our campaign a name here. I'm just going to call it Facebook Ads Audit because we're going to try and get some leads for a fictitious Facebook advertising agency. So the first real setting here is going to be networks, and you're going to want to uncheck Include Google Display Network. And the reason that you want to do this is simple. You don't want search ads and display ads in the same campaign. They are completely different animals. It's like apples and oranges. You can do a lot of with display remarketing and display ads in general, but not in the same campaign as search. So we're also going to come up here and uncheck Include Search Partners because we only want our ads to show up when someone goes to google.com and searches, not some other random search engine that is just putting Google ads on it. And so we don't want to show up on something like Ask Jeeves, right? So we'll go ahead and scroll down here and we'll go to show more settings. Now under show more settings, we're going to want to set our dates. Now I've just set this to start way in the future because I tend to forget to turn these off after I make these videos. So this will give me plenty of time to remember to go pause everything. All right, you didn't need to know that. But what I do recommend is start your campaign on either a Thursday, Friday, or a Monday. That way you have a full couple of weeks to work with, and this gives you time to set up everything else that you're going to need, like conversion tracking, your extensions, and of course double checking all of your keywords. So you don't want to start your campaign tomorrow, right? There are some other things that you're going to need to set up in order to ensure that your campaign is ready for success. And so what I recommend doing is come down here to select an end date and then select 2 weeks from whenever the campaign's starting. So I'm gonna start this campaign on a Thursday because for me, that's when I review all of our ads. It might be Monday for you or Friday. I like doing it at the beginning or the end of the week. And the reason that I recommend only running it for 2 weeks is because this is your first time running campaigns and Google will just keep spending your money. They've heard every excuse under the sun as to why we forgot to turn off our campaigns and we're so sorry, we didn't want to spend all that money. They don't care. They've heard it. And so the reason that you want to do this is just in case you forget, your campaigns will automatically stop. You can always come back in 2 weeks and just extend the date or turn off the due date altogether, but just make sure you have that protection because Google will just keep charging your credit card until you turn it off. I've had clients who forgot to do that and they came back to us months later and there's nothing you can do. So we'll go ahead and actually skip these other options. Now ad schedule is the only other one that you might want to pay attention to if phone calls are really important or you're trying to get someone to come to your physical location. But for now, we'll just go ahead and skip those and we'll come down to locations. Now by default, it's just going to select the country that you are setting up this account in. And so what I'm going to do is click on enter another location and then we'll go to advanced search. And so what I recommend doing is manually putting in all of the locations that you want to target. So here's a quick rundown of how I recommend organizing this. If you're, let's say, in e-commerce and you're targeting multiple countries, then have a campaign for each country. In this particular instance, we're running lead generation just in the United States. So what I'm going to do is instead of targeting all of the United States, I'm going to target all 50 states. And this is going to allow us in the future, when you get to optimization, you'll be able to see the exact states and how they're performing. Because if we just left it at United States, as you'll see when we get into optimization, well, then it's just going to tell you all the data for United States and you're not going to know which particular state's working. Now for regional and local, if you have a physical location or you're in real estate, then I recommend doing cities, neighborhoods, and zip codes. And that will allow you to really figure out in your local area which zip codes or cities or neighborhoods are actually performing the best for you. So to save me some time, I'm going to click on add locations in bulk. And then I'm going to jump over to our Google Ads campaign builder and I'm going to copy all of the list of 50 states. Link in the description if you want to learn more about our tool. You don't have to use it. So I'll go ahead and copy and paste them in here and then I'll click on search. And once I do, it will look up everything that I've just entered in and I can click on target all. And once I do, you'll see that now it's highlighted each state individually. And this is going to allow us to see all of the state data individually. So we'll just go ahead and click on save here. And there's one more thing you need to do, especially if you happen to be working in real estate or a hotel. So we're going to come down to location options here, and we're going to select presence, people in or regularly in your target location. So by default, Google is actually going to have presence or interest. So if someone's interested in your location, then they might still see your ad. And we definitely don't want that unless you are a hotel or real estate agent who's trying to get people who are outside of your local area to come buy a house or obviously stay at your hotel. But for the rest of us, whether we're generating leads, trying to get people in the door, or just e-commerce, right, you want to make sure that you check presence so that you're only targeting people who are physically located in that area. So that's all you need to do for locations. Languages, you can typically just leave this at default, because if your keywords are in English, then your language should be in English, right? And if it's in Spanish or let's say another language, then you'll just make sure that this language matches whatever your keyword language is in. Now, audience segments, we're going to go ahead and skip, and we're just going to come down to here to budget. And this is where we're going to tell Google how much we're willing to pay per day to run our campaigns. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a little chart here. I recommend starting anywhere from $750 to $1,500 a month. And here's a breakdown of what your daily budget would be based on just an average of 31 days. Yes, I rounded up and down. There's not exact sense, but I'm going to go ahead and start at $10 a day. And I recommend 10 to 20 absolute max when you're just getting started, because you're probably going to make more than one campaign. So there's no need to spend $100 on one campaign, right? You're probably going to spend $5, $10, or $20 per day across multiple campaigns. So I'll go ahead and just put in 10 for now. 5 is pretty much the minimum. And of course, Google's going to tell you, hey, other businesses are spending more money. Maybe you should too. And you can ignore things like these. These are just suggestions. We can always spend more money later. It's better to find out that we could have spent more money than spending money on campaigns that didn't work, right? So just let it run for 2 weeks at $5 or $10 a day, and then you can start making some optimization decisions as to whether or not we should actually spend more. So then we come down to bidding. And this is a huge area where you really need, I said that way too many times, where you really need to pay attention. So when we click on clicks, you'll see we have clicks and impressions. There's some other cool bidding strategies, which are super cool. It's like Google makes this black box and makes everything super easy after 3 to 6 months of running campaigns. But when we're just getting started, we don't want any automation in our bidding whatsoever. So what we'll do instead is we'll click on or select a bid strategy directly, not recommended. And instead of maximize clicks, we'll go ahead and click on manual CPC. And what this allows us to do is it says, hey Google, we only want to spend $2 per click. Don't spend any more than that, even if you think it's the best customer in the world. Because what will happen if you don't click this is you can go in and you can find you spend anywhere from $5 to $20 for one click. And that is awful when your daily budget is $20 and you realize you only got one click for the day. So we'll go ahead and click on manual CPC. And you're going to leave enhanced CPC alone. In some advanced strategies, you can enable this later on down the road, but for now, manual CPC is what you want. You'll actually set your bids when we go through creating your ad groups. So this is just telling us the strategy. We'll set the numbers later. Now, the final setting we have for creating your campaign here is going to be show more settings and ad rotation. Now, by default, Google is going to do their best to try and figure out which one of your ads is going to perform the best and give most of your budget to those ads. Now, the good news is if you're not the type of person who's going to check in on your ads every 3 to 5 days, then go ahead and leave this checked and just leave it alone. If you plan to have more involvement with your campaigns, then go ahead and select do not rotate or do not optimize, rotate indefinitely. And so what this will do is it will tell Google, hey, if my ad shows up 600 times, I want one ad to be seen 300, and I want the other ad to be seen 300. And this allows you to figure out which ad's working, right? Because if this one got 10 clicks and this one only got 2 clicks, then you know this one worked. But if you allow Google to optimize, then it's going to make its own decisions about which ad is better. And you might come back and find that one ad got 500 impressions and the other only got 100. And of course, if an ad shows up 100 times and another one shows up 500 times, you can't really make a decision as to which one's better because one had so many more chances, right? And so if that was confusing at all, I do apologize. I had to cut that several times. So go ahead and leave it at optimized if that seems confusing, or you're like, I just want Google to handle this part. It's not going to make or break your campaign if you don't control this particular aspect. Now, that is all there is to it, to all of your campaign settings. You'll see here at the bottom, we also have the option to create something called site link extensions, or just extensions. And these are something that we're going to set up at a later point in time after our campaign has been completed. These give you more real estate in your ads and more opportunity to engage with your potential customers. So we'll go ahead and come and click on save and continue. And once we do, we are now at our ad groups. So we're done with our campaign setup. It's complete. All the settings are good to go. Now it's time to add some keywords and tell Google when do we want to show up when someone searches on Google. So going back to our diagram here, you can see at the campaign level, we are all set good to go. And everything we just did will apply to all of our ad groups and all of our ads. So again, if locations are really important, you're going to set up multiple campaigns for each location that you want to target. So here, what I recommend with your ad groups is having 3 to 5 ad groups and then no more than 7 keywords per ad group. You may have seen other recommendations. Everyone seems to have their own 2 cents on how to organize these. This is just something that we found to work best after our experience and of course years upon years of doing this. I'm almost at a decade of running these ads, and this tends to be what we find works best when you're creating a new campaign. Now back over to the Google Ads interface, I'll go ahead and give our ad group a name. I'm just going to call it Facebook Ads Management Seattle to be descriptive of the types of keywords. There's nothing fancy with the naming here. And then we have your default bid. Now I recommend starting at $2, but this is some data from WordStream, so this isn't something I came up with. They've gone through and done the research, and based on 2021, these are the averages that you could expect to pay based upon your industry. So you can always pause, timestamps below to come back to this. And so obviously some niches and industries are going to cost a lot more. So if you look at it here, you know, dentist services are going to be $6.50, whereas arts and entertainment is only going to be $1.60, right? And so there's a huge range of what you might pay. I recommend starting at $2 to $3 per click because you can always increase your bids later if it turns out that you're not getting any impressions or clicks. So again, timestamps below to come back to this. So we'll jump back into the interface, and I've gone ahead and set my bid for $2 per day. Now it's time for keywords. And of course, this could be a video in and of itself. So timestamps below if you want to skip over to the keyword planner part of this master guide, where we take a super deep dive into everything you need to know to putting together a solid keyword plan. Now, to save us some time, you can go ahead and use these keyword formulas to get started. I'll also link up in the description to our Google Ads playbook, which includes all of these formulas and more, along with a complete guide on how to change these formulas to match whatever your business is. So we have some formulas for location and services-based businesses, and then we have some formulas for physical products as well. I know this might seem overly simplified, but this is really all you need to get started because people only have so many different combinations of typing in your product or service, right? So the nice thing is we don't have to be super creative. So we can always come back and do much more keyword research later. Again, timestamps along with a link to our Google Ads playbook to grab a copy of all of these formulas and more. So I'm going to save us some time. I'm going to jump back over to my Google Ads campaign builder here. I'm going to copy our keywords, and then I'm going to go ahead and paste them in. Now, something that you'll notice here is we didn't just paste in the keywords, right? We have quotations around some, and we have brackets around some other ones. And this is how we tell Google what type of keyword this is. So it's not enough to just say, hey, I want to show up when someone types in this keyword. We have to tell Google how specific we want to be when someone types in that search. So this is a very, very brief rundown because you just want to use something called phrase match and exact match. So as an example here, with phrase match, it's going to show your ad every time someone types in men's watch plus anything else. So as long as men's and watch, those 2 words are in the search, your ad could potentially show up. For exact match though, men's watch has to be the only thing that's typed in, or some very, very close variation. So you can see in the example searches, men's watch, it could be black men's watch, by men's watch, modern style men's watches. Whereas with exact match, it has to be men's watch, watchmen, or watches for men, right? So it has to be those exact words and pretty much nothing else. And to, for, and on, those little filler words, those will still show up for exact match. Broad match, on the other hand, you never want to use, because any search that includes the word men's or includes the word watch, you could potentially show up for, which is a lot of wasted ad spend. So just use phrase, just use exact match. So I'll jump back over to the interface here and I'll scroll down and create our next ad group. So here we're just going to name it Facebook Ads Agency Seattle. So the first one was management. The second one is agency. We're not being super complicated here. We'll set our default bid to $2, and then I'll go ahead and copy our keywords from our campaign builder and go ahead and paste them in. And if you want to learn more about our campaign builder, you can check out the link in the description, because there's actually a way to directly import all of your ads and keywords and match types without going through all this tedious copying and pasting. So I'll go through this one more time very fast here, because you probably get the point and you're just like, come on, all you're doing is copying and pasting. So we'll copy one more set of keywords, paste them in. You can check out the link in the description to skip this tedious process with our campaign builder. And with that, we can go ahead and click on save and continue. So we have our keywords and we have our 3 ad groups, which is the minimum I recommend starting with. And we'll go ahead and click on save and continue. And now for the fun part, ad copywriting. We get to actually write our ads. So jumping back over to our diagram, briefly, we've got our campaign set. We just created our ad groups here. So we have 3 ad groups. We've set our bid at $2 per click. And then our match types are phrase and exact. And so since our budget is actually $10 a day and our max bid is $2 per click, that means if we paid $2 per click, and our bid and our budget is $10 per day, we're going to get a maximum of 5 clicks per day. Now, 5 clicks per day doesn't really sound that much. We're gonna hope that we pay less so we get more clicks, but that's how the math would work out. And that's how your budget and your cost per click kind of interact with each other. So ideally, you're not gonna go over $10 per day, although Google says you can go over 20%. But I'll leave that for another rant another day. So when it comes to creating your ads, you're going to have to create something called responsive text ads. And so this is going to be where you're going to write some headlines, you're going to have a description, you're going to be able to create a display URL, and then callouts and site links are types of extensions that we're going to get to later. So let's just jump back into the interface and I'll go through each one by one. So we'll go ahead and scroll down here and we'll start with our URL. I'll jump over to our campaign builder. I'm just using this for time purposes, so you don't watch me think like, oh, I don't know what I should write here, right? So we have our URL paths and our final URL. So I'll go ahead and paste those in. Now, your URL path does not have to match what your actual URL is. So this is a great opportunity to create some urgency or communicate a sale or discount. Now, right now, of course, I keep saying this and eventually Google's going to stop us from doing this, but you can actually be a little more salesy with your URL paths than you can with your headline. So sometimes you'll say something like double your return on ad spend, or something crazy like 50% off and win a free trip to Hawaii or something like that in your headline, and Google's going to go, no, you can't say stuff like that. But with your URL paths, sometimes when we say things like double your return on ad spend or results guaranteed, or talking about a specific result that you can help someone achieve. So you can get away with some things in your URL path that you wouldn't be able to get away with your headlines. So speaking of your headlines, that's what's up next. So to save time, I'll just hop over to our campaign builder. I'll copy our headlines and paste them in. Now, something that you're going to notice with these is they're very similar to our keywords. And so before you get into all the nuances of copywriting for your headlines and then reverse engineering competitors, a great place to start with headlines is just using variations of the keywords that you're targeting. And the reason that this works so well, doesn't work too well on places like Facebook where you're trying to grab attention, but here it works because someone just types something in, and what you want to do is think about entering the conversation in your ideal customer's mind. So if your ideal customer just typed in modern men's watch, or they just typed in Facebook ads agency, and your ad literally says modern men's watches for sale or honest Facebook ads management, then you are meeting them exactly where they are. That's exactly what they were looking for. So one of the things about Google Ads copywriting that's different from other platforms is you don't need or want to be as clever or as salesy with your copy. Now, there are some nuances. There are ways to edge out your competitors so that you don't have the exact same ads they do. So if you want to learn more about ads copywriting and how you can be more competitive, because writing ads is a really large part of optimizing your account, I'll link up in the description to our Google Ads copywriter course. It's chock full of formulas that we use for ourselves and clients that we've developed after spending millions of dollars on ad spend over the past couple of years. So with your headlines, you want to focus on that keywords, those keywords that someone's typing in, and then features and benefits. I'll go through how to reverse engineer some of your competitors' ads in a moment. But first, want to talk about how these headlines actually work. Because right now we have a series of headlines and Google is just going to rotate them as Google sees fit, right? And so if you want to make sure that a headline shows up at the first position, the second position, or the third position, although the third position hardly shows up, so you don't really have to worry about that, what you can do is you can click on this little icon here, and then you can say only show at first position. So when you have your keywords as your headline, you want those to always show up first. We know that from lots and lots of testing. So I'm going to say this only show up first, and then I'm going to say honest Facebook ads agency only show first. And so what this does is when Google's testing, it will only ever put Seattle Facebook ads agency as this first headline. It will never put it as the second one. And one more note here, I apologize if this is confusing. Go ahead and let me know in the comments section with any of your questions. I do read and reply to every single one. Now, sometimes you're going to have a headline that should only show up at the end. So something like see improvement in 14 days. We don't want that to show up as the very first thing that someone sees when they type in, because we want our keyword or our big feature or benefit to go first. Then we'll talk about our something else that we can do for them. So I'll come down here to see improvement in 14 days, and I'll say position 3. And so Google will optimize all of our headlines, but whenever it shows this headline, it will only show position 3. And whenever it shows Seattle Facebook ads agency or honest Facebook ad agency, it'll put it in position 1. So again, your keywords, your keyword-based headlines should be position 1. And then if you have anything like a feature or a big benefit, you're going to want those to show up in number 2 or number 3 typically. But here I'll go ahead and leave that alone, and we'll come down to our descriptions. Now I'll quickly copy and paste our description in here. And before I hit done, you don't need to add more than 2 description lines. We've tested hundreds, if not thousands of ads, and the descriptions have such a little impact on the performance of your ad. Most people are only going to be looking at your headlines. We have spent so much time trying to optimize with descriptions, and just focus on your headlines, and that's 80-20 at its finest. So we'll go ahead and click on done here, and then it's going to, of course, ask you to create an ad for the other campaigns that you've set up. Now, it is possible to skip through this process and just copy your ad over to your other campaigns, although I highly recommend going through and creating unique ads for each one of your ad groups, because the more focused your ad is in relation to your keywords, the better your campaign's going to perform. And so if you're still not quite sure what on earth you should have in your ad copy, you can take your keyword, go over to Google private browsing incognito mode and search that keyword, and then just look at the ads that show up for inspiration. Obviously not copying, but inspiration. And so what you want to do is you want to look for a couple of things. Number 1, you want to look for what is being promised in other people's ads. And so that's what's in red here. So what are the results being promised? We can see ROI driven, ROI focused, help businesses grow your business. And so we can kind of get an idea of, okay, this is the kind of the results that we should be talking about. We should be talking about ROI and helping businesses grow. And then the next thing you want to look at is what are the specific pain points, objections, features, or purchasing terms that are being talked about here. So we can see in blue, we can see people are talking about transparency, dedicated account manager, no long-term contracts, and no fees and transparency, because there's a lot of shady stuff that goes on with marketing agencies. So being able to say, hey, we're not going to, charge you something that you didn't think you had, or we're not going to lock you into this big long-term contract, could be one way to get people to click on our ad versus other people's, right? And then you also want to look at, if you're a services-based business, what is specifically being offered, right? Because sometimes you're going to find that you might have a service that you want to promote, but you're going to have to promote another one of your services just to get people to click or get people in the door. And then finally, of course, if there's any social proof, do they have a reviews extension, which we'll get to later, or do they have any sort of certifications or something to the effect of other people have found us helpful, right? Because obviously social proof plays a big role in someone deciding to click on your ad. So for time purposes, I'm just going to go ahead and skip through the rest of creating these other ads. And so now I've gone ahead and created all 3 ads here. I've just kind of skipped through it. Again, link in the description to check out our campaign builder, because it will allow you to directly upload everything and there's no copying and pasting. So we'll go ahead and click on save and continue. Comment below with any of your questions when it comes to ad copywriting in general. So now we have essentially created our campaign and we're back to the account setup process. And this is where we need to enter our billing information. So just go ahead and enter your billing information. I highly recommend using a credit card, because if you have a debit card or if you have a PayPal account, and let's say for some reason you get overdrafted, or PayPal does what PayPal likes to do and not pay a vendor for some reason, Google gets really, really upset very quick when they don't get paid. So it's very easy for your account to be suspended, your ads stop running, and the last thing you want to do is go through support trying to get your account reinstated. So that's why I recommend using a credit card, so Google always gets their money, and then just using your campaign timing as a way to stop getting billed. So that's why when we went through the campaign setup process, we set an end date for our campaign. Always set an end date for your campaign so you protect yourself from being overbilled, because going through the Google process of trying to get your account unsuspended is such a pain. So I'll get off that soapbox. We'll go ahead and click on submit, and our campaign is done. So go ahead and hit that like button if you're still watching, because you're a champion. Let's go ahead and explore our campaign. So we'll go ahead and click on explore. It'll take us to our overview page, which I never look at. I go straight to our campaigns table. So we'll do that, and you'll see all the campaigns that you've created. I'll just go ahead and hide this menu on the side. And with that, your campaign is created, it's scheduled and ready to go. And so now that your campaign is complete, it's time to create your ad extension. So these are going to be things that we can add to our ads that will allow us to be more engaging with our potential customers, and it just gives us more real estate. These don't cost anything, which is why I recommend adding them right now that you've completed setting up your campaign. So jumping into our interface here, the first thing we want to do to create our ads and extensions is to click on Ads and Extensions. Once we do, we'll click on Extensions, and then we'll click the blue plus button, and we'll be able to see all of the different types that we can create. Now, before we go into creating our site links, our callouts, and structured snippets and call extension, let's quickly go through what each one of these actually looks like when it comes to how it appears in Google. So first up, we have the most common, which is site links. And no matter what type of company you are, you should be using site links, because as with all extensions, you don't pay more for them to show up. Google just decides if they want to show these. Now, the first example here we have from Walmart.com. We can see shop online, pick up today, and store locator. And then for Amazon, it just shows the headings. So Google decides whether it shows the heading and the description, or if it just shows the heading. And of course, you can make as many of these as you want, and you can actually make these for specific ad groups or campaigns, or just have some for the account level. Now, the next type we have are call out extensions, and these are essentially just a list of features or benefits for your product or service that can be added on after your description. So the second two ads here are an example of what these actually look like. So you're just going to have 15 characters and you're just going to list out some features or benefits of your offer to hopefully get people to click on your ad. Next, we have structured snippets, and this is a menu of items, right? So, or a description of your different product SKUs. We'll go through structured snippets in more detail so you can see your different options depending upon the type of business that you run. Call extensions are great if you're actually going to pick up the phone. So if you're not standing by on your phone, don't use these because it's just going to be a waste of your cost per click, right? But these work really well, especially with something like water damage, where someone probably wants someone to show up and fix that water damage ASAP. Now, when it comes to lead form extensions, these are really cool because they allow you to collect contact information directly from Google. So the first one we have is from quicksilver.com, and you can sign up to win a trip to Hawaii. The second one is another water damage example where if someone doesn't necessarily want to call, they can go ahead and click on the Get Started site link extension here or lead form extension, and then they can fill out some information so they can get a free quote on their particular water damage, which is definitely not fun. And so again, with all of these, you can add as many of these as you want, and it's not going to cost you anything extra. So you might as well go all out here. Now, if you have a physical location, you can go ahead and create a location extension or affiliate location extension. Although I don't really see these too much anymore. Most of the time, they're just going to put Google Maps on top, right? Then we have our price extension. This is great if you're in e-commerce and price is important to you, right? So if you are selling anything luxury, this is probably going to work against you. But if you're doing run-of-the-mill products and pricing is something that you're competing on as opposed to brand or luxury, then you can actually include different details about your specific products, and then people can actually just click like more here, and they can actually go directly to the page on your site that has that listing of ski pants or ski hats or whatever it may be. Then we have app extensions, which I could not find a good example. I spent a good 30, 40 minutes trying to find, and I could not get Google to give me one of those. But if you're doing any sort of app downloads, you should just do a campaign specifically for app downloads as opposed to using an extension anyway. And finally, we have promotion extensions. These are great if you have some limited time things, and you can actually set and start an end date for this. So if you have a limited time promotion, and let's say it's just for the next 2 weeks, or it's going to be in 2 weeks, you can tell Google when you want this extension to show up. And this is just an example deal, 70% off brands, and then someone can go directly to whatever the sales page is for those particular deals. So let's go ahead and kick things off by doing the most common extension here, and that's going to be our site link extensions. And it's always hard for me to say add extension because I always want to say site link extension. So the first thing you're going to want to do is decide whether or not this extension should show up at the account level. This means any campaign everywhere. It shows up for just one campaign, or it shows up for just one ad group. Now, in an ideal world, you would set up these for each individual ad group. But hey, we don't necessarily have time to go through 20 or 30 ad groups that we have, or however many you're starting with. And so you're most likely just going to start at the account level. So we'll go ahead and click on Create New here. Or you can use existing if you want to mix and match. There's some advanced things that you can do. And I'm going to jump over to our Google Ads campaign builder, and I'm just going to quickly copy and paste these in. Link in the description if you'd like to learn more about that, because you can actually directly upload these instead of going through this tedious copying and pasting process. So I'll go ahead and copy the rest here, and I'll go ahead and paste them in. And now we can see a preview over here with our desktop-based ad. So you can see we have our headline, and then we have the two description lines here. Now the description lines are not always going to show up. So you want to make sure that whatever you put as your site link text makes sense without any description. And when you create your first 4, they have to go to different pages on your site. So you can't have all of these pages, all of these links going to the same page. Once you've created your initial 4, you can create more site links for the same page. So as an example, because it's a little confusing, let's say custom marketing plan. I wanted to try out saying tailored marketing plan or personalized marketing plan, and I wanted to go to the same page. Now that I have 4 site links, I can go create 2 more site links and have it go to the exact same page and then just change out the headline to see which headline works better. So site links are also a place that you can optimize. Just make sure you have a minimum of 4 before you start duplicating your URLs. Otherwise, Google's going to be upset because they want you to have at least 4 site links. So just think of this as a great way to segment your potential customers. Of course, you don't want to send them to a random page on your site just for the heck of it. Make sure that every page that you're linking to is going to push them one step further down your sales process, whatever your sales process is. So we'll go ahead and click on save here. And now we have a preview of our site links. And you can always click here to go through and see your other site links that you've created. And I'm going to stop saying site links now and start saying callout extensions. So with callout extensions, these are going to be a lot more basic. They aren't going to link physically to any extra page on your site. So I'll go ahead and just leave it at the account level. So you have a lot of options when it comes to what you can do with your callouts. I like doing descriptive features or social proof. If you have any sort of certifications or industry seals, these are a great place to put those. So I'm just going to go ahead and drop in some features of our particular offer promoting a Facebook ads agency. And these are going to rotate and they're not all going to show at the same time. So Google is going to go through and figure out which one of these callout extensions and which combination of them they think is going to work best for you. So the more the merrier here. And for callouts, I do recommend going through the extra steps of at least creating them at the campaign level. For time purposes, I'm just doing it at the account, but because you're probably going to have 1 product or service per campaign, it would make sense to go through and make sure that your callout extensions are really specific to whatever that offer is for that campaign. Now, also something that we skipped in the last one, you can come down here to advanced options and you actually have the ability to create an ad schedule. So as we talked about with the example of the deals or the promotions, sometimes you only want to show these for a particular date range or a particular time of day. So you can get really specific here. Unless it's really, really important, I recommend just leaving it alone because it's not going to make that big of a deal. But especially if you're doing something like you have leads coming in and you need to pick up your phone to get that call, or you're doing something else with store hours, then adding some times and date restrictions might make sense. So we'll go ahead and click on save here. And then we can scroll down and we can see a preview of our different callout extensions and how they would look at being added on to our different campaign or different ads that are inside our campaigns. So we'll go back up here, click the blue plus button, and then click on structured snippets. So I'm going through the ones that, irrespective of your type of business, you should definitely be using these. So once we click on structured snippet here, I'll go ahead and skip the account setup. You can do account, campaign, ad group, just like everything else. And here you're going to select a header. And so essentially what this is allowing you to give more information about your specific product or service, or in this particular instance, we're going to have a menu of items. And so hopefully one of these makes sense. For example, neighborhoods, if you're a real estate agent, you would list out all the neighborhoods that you service. Or if, let's say, you're helping with water damage, maybe you want to tell people the different neighborhoods that you can quickly get to within 24 hours or something like that. So we'll go ahead and click on Service Catalog, and I'll just go ahead and paste these in. And so you can see how this is added at the end of the ad. Now, most people, like 9.9 out of 10 people, who are searching Google, they're not going to know that this is an extension, right? Because you can see we have description 1, and then these are actually our callout extensions. And then where it says service catalog, Facebook ads, Google ads, Instagram, blah, 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 that is what we've put here. And not all of these are going to show up again, right? So just because let's say I put 20 in here for some reason, right? That doesn't mean Google's going to list out all 20, right? They're going to optimize for us. They're going to figure out which combinations they think work the best and get the most clicks. And of course, when it comes to your date and time settings, you have that available to you under advanced options. I'm going to go ahead and click on save here. I'll go ahead and scroll down and you can see a preview of your structured snippets. Now on this particular page, you're always going to be able to see all of your ad extensions across your entire account for your ad groups and your different campaigns. And so this is a great place to go when you're trying to figure out what site links are performing well for specific ad groups or on your account as a whole. So I'll just come back over to campaigns. And now it's just time to sit back and wait for the data to start rolling in. And while you're waiting for your campaigns to start or your initial campaigns get started, you can go ahead and do some in-depth keyword research to find more keywords to create more campaigns, which is what we'll do now. If you're still watching and getting some value, go ahead and hit that like button. Again, comment below with any questions as we're going through this guide. I know it's a long one, but you're getting everything you need to be successful creating your Google Ads campaigns. So now let's go ahead and talk about keyword research, because we used a quick hack using the keyword formulas from the Google Ads playbook. And now it's time to go find all of the possible keywords that you could be using for your account. So to get started with our keyword research, we'll go ahead and click on Tools and Settings at the top here, and then we'll click on Keyword Planner. And so inside of Keyword Planner, we can either discover new keywords or get search volume and forecast. Now, search volume and forecast, that's more for agencies when they're doing a pitch or they're just trying to figure out how much a new campaign is going to cost a client. Here, we're going to click on Discover New Keywords, and we can either start with keywords or we could start with a website. Now, a little trick here is it doesn't have to be your website that you start with. So you can go to a big competitor, and let's say we were selling men's watches. I really like that example. Then you could go to a couple of larger websites or a website that is specific to men's watches that's big in that particular niche, and you could type in that URL and Google will give you a bunch of information and keyword ideas based upon that big site. So that's a great way to get started. Here, what I'm going to do though is I'm going to use something called seed keywords. And this is where I recommend you start. Now, what seed keywords are, they're very broad terms to help you identify your product or your service. And so to, of course, shortcut the process here, you can go ahead and use one of our keyword formulas, whether you're a services-based business or you are in e-commerce. Link in the description to our Google Ads playbook that has all of these formulas and some additional resources to help you with this keyword process. So in this particular instance, we're doing a services-based business, of course, promoting a Facebook ads agency. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to enter Facebook ad agency, Facebook marketing agency, Facebook ads management, because that describes the type of business that we are and then the service that we offer. And so if I was in e-commerce and I was promoting, let's say, men's rings, then I would literally just type in men's rings, and that's it. You want to be super broad because our goal here is to get all of the keywords. We want everything. We don't want to leave any stone unturned. So I'll go ahead and click on Get Results here, and then we'll be able to see our dashboard. So I'll quickly go over the settings that we have, and then I'll go into how to actually find the right keywords in all of these. I'll get into why you don't see exact numbers here. And then of course, we'll go through actually organizing them into ad groups so you can actually start making your campaigns with these new keywords. So at the very top here, if you click on this little collection of keywords, you can change your seed keywords or you can add a website. I don't recommend changing this because this is going to change your keyword list. So go ahead and leave this alone for now, but you can always go and change this once you've gone through all 162 keywords. So we'll go ahead and X that out. You can also change your location. And so here, I don't recommend being detailed. Just choose the country that you're targeting so that you get all the keywords for that particular country. And I'll go ahead and click on cancel. Of course, the language should just match the language that your ads and keywords are going to be in. You can also change what network that you show up on. And this is something that you can just leave as at default. And then you can also change the date range. By default, it's just going to show you the previous 12 months, which is a good place to start. Now, a couple more things before we get into our actual keywords, timestamps below to skip ahead if you don't want all this introduction. And we can go ahead and click on Add Filter, and we can actually filter out our keyword lists. Do I recommend doing this? No, but there are two that might be worth your while, and that is exclude keywords in your account and exclude keywords in your campaign. Of course, there's a column here called account status, so it'll tell you, so you don't really have to do it. But those would be the only two things that I would recommend changing in your filter from this place. But if we jump over to refine keywords over here, this is something that's going to help you, especially if you're in e-commerce. This is going to save you so much time. So I'll go ahead and click on expand all here. And what this does is Google's gone through this list of keywords and it's grouped together some common types that they know on average you might not want to use. And so if you're in e-commerce, you're going to want to uncheck all the brands that aren't on your site, right? Like if you're selling Adidas shoes on your site, you don't want to look at Nike keywords because someone's looking for Nikes, it's not going to buy Adidas, right? And probably vice versa. I'm not really a sneakerhead, but that just was the example that came to mind. So I'm going to select Instagram, Reddit, and other brands because it's not going to be related to the offer that I have as a Facebook ads agency offering Facebook ads services. And then we can go ahead and scroll down here, and I'm also going to uncheck Facebook Ads Manager. And this is just because I know when someone's typing in Facebook Ads Manager, they're looking for the manager tool, not looking to hire me to help them manage their account. And so obviously there's going to be nuances in your particular niche or industry, but this is going to help you just take out the keywords that are going to be irrelevant to your particular offer and your customer. So now we've gone from 162 down to 131, and you can come up here to the X button and you can exit out, and you can always click on refine keywords to bring that back. So we'll go ahead and now we're going to actually dive into our keyword ideas. So we got 131 out of 162, and this is both tedious, it can be arduous, you can roll your eyes at me like you really want me to go through all hundreds or thousands of keywords. So the bad news is yes, you definitely need to go through all these. The good news is once you do this, you're never gonna have to do it again. Like ever, really, because there's only so many different ways someone's going to search for your product or service. And so for time purposes here, I'm just going to quickly scroll through and I'm going to select around 20 keywords or 30 keywords that represent someone looking for a Facebook ad agency or Facebook ad services. You want to be very specific. So if you look at a keyword and you look at it and you go, well, they might be interested in what I want, but I'm not quite sure. You have two options. Number one, just ignore it because there's so many keywords in the world and there's no need to have tire kickers clicking on your ads. Or number two, you could just add that to a list of I should check it out. And so if you're not quite sure about a keyword, just take that keyword, go over to Google private browsing incognito mode, paste the keyword in and see what shows up and see if the organic search results and the ads represent someone who would be actually looking for your product or service. Most of the time, you're going to find that if it's on the fence, it's going to be a no because you don't want to pay for a keyword that you're not sure if it's a buyer, right? We want people who want to buy. We don't want people who are looking for a how-to article or just looking for a bunch of reviews because they're not quite ready to make a buying decision. And so once you've selected all of your keywords, you can come up here and click on plan and then go ahead and just add it to a plan. You can add it to an existing campaign. So if you clicked existing campaign, you could go ahead and create a new ad group. You could select your match types. I don't recommend doing that. Just leave it at plan and then go to add keywords. I'll show you how to download all these keywords and properly organize them because it's going to be a lot easier just using a basic spreadsheet, even if you hate Excel or Google Sheets or whatever spreadsheet application you like to use. It'll be a lot easier than using the interface. So we'll go ahead and click on add keywords to create our plan. And then we can click on keyword plan on the left-hand side to check out our keywords that we've added, or we can go ahead and click on view saved keywords down here. Now you'll see the account status, it's now told us that it's in our plan. And so you'll leave that column there so you don't accidentally add the same keyword twice. So we'll go ahead and come up here and click on keyword plan. And now we can see a list of all of the keywords that we've selected. Now, obviously for time purposes, I didn't go through all 131. That would be boring for both of us, but you would want to go through all 100 plus keywords for yourself. So once we have this list, we're actually going to come up here to download it as a CSV. So we'll go ahead and click on download as CSV. open it up in Google Sheets or Excel or Open Office or whatever your numbers on Mac, whatever you're using. And then through the power of editing, this process took about 20 to 30 minutes. And at the end of it, we have 3 to 7 keywords per ad group, and all of the keywords are grouped by similar search variations. So I put all the company keywords together, I put all the agency keywords together, and then if someone was looking for pricing, I went ahead and put that together. And as you can see at the end, we have lead generation and e-com. They didn't really go with anything else. So they're gonna have to be their own ad group, because if I'm going to write an ad, I can't write an ad for lead generation and for e-com at the same time. One ad's gonna have to say Facebook ads for lead generation, another ad's gonna have to say Facebook ads for e-com. And so that means they have to be 2 separate ad groups, because I have to make 2 different ads. So that's another way to think about how to organize these keywords. It is going to take some time, right? And this is part of the process that you definitely do not want to skip out on, because the better your keyword groupings here, the better your ads are going to perform, and the easier it's to optimize your campaigns later on down the road. So here, this would be what I would use for creating a new campaign or new series of campaigns, and these would be how I would group the keywords together. So jumping back over into the Google Ads interface, there's one other feature here with the keyword planner that might be helpful. We'll go ahead and click on forecast, and then we're going to immediately change it from maximize clicks to manual CPC. I'll go ahead and apply. And now this is going to give you some projections on what Google thinks you're going to get in terms of traffic and conversions based upon your cost per click. Now I like, of course, starting at $2 or $3 per click. So I'll just go ahead and change this to $2. And now we can kind of see what we could expect to get and how much it would cost over a 30-day period of running traffic like this. And so this is a great tool to kind of play with. Please take this with a grain of salt, right? Because you're going to be using different match types than what's shown here. You're going to be targeting different locations. Your ad copy and your landing page are going to play a significant role in how your ads perform. And of course, you're also going to want to create something called negative keywords. And so these are going to be keywords that you tell Google that you don't want to show up for. And so I'll link up in the description to our Google Ads playbook that actually includes a list of negative keywords that I recommend everyone use, irrespective of your niche or industry, just to make sure that you don't get people who are information seekers or people who aren't ready to make a buying decision or jump on the phone with you. And to leave this interface, all you have to do is click X. You'll be taken back to your campaigns. And of course, you can always go to Tools and Settings to go back to your plan. Google tends to save your last plan. So if you forgot to download it as a CSV, most likely Google will have saved it for you just in case something goes wrong. And with your keywords in hand, there's just one more step to our process, which is of course optimizing your campaigns. Now what we're about to go through, you're probably going to do in week 2 or 3 of your campaigns running. So go ahead and hit that like button. If you're still watching, you're an absolute champion. We are on the home stretch. It's time to optimize our campaigns. So the first thing we need to do when it comes to optimizing your campaigns is making sure that you can see the information that you need in order to make an informed decision. So jumping into our Google Ads here, the first thing we want to do is we're going to come up here to columns, and then we're going to click on modify columns. And once we do, we're going to be able to change the information that's displayed so that we can get the information that we need. Now, the good news is what we're about to go through doesn't change what's being collected. So just because we didn't choose a column before doesn't mean Google wasn't collecting that information. That's different than when you're setting up your campaign and you forget to do an ad schedule, or you forget to segment your locations and Google just didn't collect that information for you. So don't worry if you're coming back to this later after you've run campaigns for a while. You're not missing out on any data. You're just telling Google, hey, I'd like to see data that you've already collected. Now, the first set of metrics we want to use is going to be performance, clicks, cost, impression, and CTR. Now, these are all going to be selected for you by default. Clicks tells you how many clicks total the campaign has gotten. Cost tells you how much you've spent on the campaign. Impressions tells you how many times your ad appeared. So this is just how many times did someone type in a search and your ad showed up. Then CTR, that's the ratio of what percentage of people clicked on your ad when it showed up. So if you had your 100 impressions and 10 clicks, That'd be a 10% CTR, click-through rate. That means 10% of the people clicked your ad. Finally, we have average cost per click. And so this is the average that you paid for someone clicking. And so that's all we have under performance. Now, conversions is something that you're going to want to add, and I will link up in the cards in the description to a super deep dive video on Google Tag Manager adding conversion tracking to your site. And so that will allow you to actually see what people do on your site, and then that information will come back into Google to help you optimize your campaign. So you can track sales, you can track someone entering a contact form, you could track someone watching a video if that was super important to you. So link in the cards in the description to Google Tag Manager and how to set up all that tracking code. But here we're going to want to select conversions, cost per conversion, and conversion rate. So this is going to tell you how many people took the action you cared about and the percentage of people who clicked and took that action. And then of course, how much did it cost for you to get that sale, to get that lead? And again, link in the cards in the description to Tag Manager that handles all that conversion tracking stuff. Here, we're just gonna add it and it'll be ready to go once you've set that up. So next we have competitive metrics. So we want search impression share, search lost is, and search lost is budget and rank. So this is a little confusing. So these will take a while to get used to. So what search impression share tells us is based upon the total number of times we could have showed up, what percentage of the time did we? And so let's say, for instance, we could have showed up 100 times for our ad, but we only showed up 50 out of those 100 times. Then our search impression share metric is going to be 50% because we only showed up 50% of the time. Now, the reason you didn't get the extra 50 impressions, it could be Google doesn't like your ad. It could be your timing settings, your location. Well, not your location settings. It could be your budget. It could be any number of things. But what this metric tells you is how much room do you have to grow? Because if your impression share is at 90%, that means it doesn't matter what you do, you're not going to get more impressions. You're not going to get more clicks. So try a different campaign. So that's why this is important. Now, search lost is rank. This is going to tell you how many times did you miss out on something because Google didn't like your ad. So this is a good indicator of whether or not you need to work on your ad copy or not. So obviously the higher the percentage here, the worse your ads are performing. And then budget, this tells you what percentage of time did your ad not show up because you just ran out of money. So if, let's say this number is at 30%, this means that you only have 30, you could increase your budget 30 or 40% more, and then increasing your budget wouldn't do anything else. And so the lower your lost is of budget, that means the less room you have to scale and grow. So we'll go ahead and come down to call details. You're going to use this if you're doing anything with phone calls. I'm not, so we'll go ahead and leave that alone. And of course, timestamps below because that can be a little confusing. And our Google Ads playbook actually goes through a super deep dive on what these metrics actually mean and how to actually optimize your campaigns based upon them. So link in the description to that if you want to take a deeper dive. So here, I'm just going to quickly reorder my columns here. And then we can go ahead and save our column set. So I'll click over here to save our column set. And I'm just going to call it search. So that way, when in the future, if I want to see all these columns again, we can just click on columns and click on search. We don't have to go through this process anymore. So I'll go ahead and click on save and apply, and I'll expand. And now you can see all of the columns that we've added. I've just created these campaigns, of course, so everything is 0. But as data comes in, these numbers will start to populate. So I'll go ahead and collapse. And so that does it for what you want to look at the campaign level. Most of your optimization is going to, or at your account level, most of your optimization you're going to want to do inside a specific campaign. So in this particular instance, I'm going to go to Facebook Ads Audit. And this is going to be where we're going to start looking at optimizing our ad groups. Now, before we do anything else, we need to add columns again. So I'll go through this a little quicker because it's pretty much the same process. So I'll click on columns. Under performance, we're going to need to add impressions and CTR. And then we'll come down to conversions and we'll add conversions, cost per conversion, conversion rate, and you can uncheck conversion value. Most of the time, that's not really going to matter until you're in month like 3 or 4. And then we're going to add some competitive metrics. I recommend the same 3 that we added last time, plus search exact match is. This is just going to tell us the percentage of time when someone typed in the exact keyword that we had in our plan. And so this is going to help you with keyword optimization in the future. I recommend going through Google's help on this one because it is really hard to explain, but I can tell you that you're going to want it because it's going to help you figure out whether or not you're on the right track with your keywords. Because the lower this percentage is, that means you're showing up for a lot of keywords that aren't actually in your ad group. And that can tell you that there's a mismatch between your keywords and what you're showing up for. So we'll go ahead and select call details if call details are important to you. And then I'll come over here, quickly reorder my columns, and then I will just save the column set as search again and save and apply. So now I can come back to columns in any campaign and have these columns ready to go. So we'll go ahead and click on expand here, and you can see all of the columns that we have set up. So now we have our columns. How the heck do you actually optimize your ad groups? And so this is really complicated. There's a lot of if this, then that. And so what I'm going to go through is a general scenario that for 9 out of 10 campaigns that run for the first time, this is going to happen. And this is the first thing that you're going to want to do. So I'm going to jump into our diagram here. Let's say we have a campaign. We have our 5 ad groups. And after the end of 2 weeks, one ad group spent $20 and then the other ad group spent $4 to $2, right? So this is going to be pretty common. You're going to come in here and you're going to go, I spent $20 on one ad group and then all the other ad groups didn't get any impressions. And so what you're going to have to do is split the campaign. So what you're going to do is you're going to, as an example, let's say Facebook Ads Management Seattle spent $20 and then these ones spent $5. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this entire campaign and you're going to copy it. And then in this original campaign, you'd pause Facebook Ads Agency Seattle and Facebook Ads Management Best because you only spent like $5 or $10, right? And this one spent 20, right? So you want to keep that data. And then in the new campaign, you're going to run that new campaign, but just with these 2 ad groups so that you can actually start collecting data. And so this budget hog problem is super common. And so when you see that happen, it's totally normal. That's why I recommend starting 1 or 2 weeks with your runtime, and then you start making adjustments. Now that's what you're going to want to do at the ad group level. You're going to want to see which one's spending too much money. You're going to duplicate the campaign, and you're going to allow the ad groups that didn't get much of the budget to run in the new campaign. And your original campaign, you'll just keep optimizing the ad group that sucked up all the budget already, right? And so in this particular instance, this campaign's at $10 per day, right? And so what we would do is once we split them into 2 campaigns, one campaign would be $5 a day, the other campaign would be $5 a day. So we're going to reallocate the budget. We're still only spending 10, but one is at 5, the other's at 5. And that way the ad groups that didn't get the budget the first time round will actually get the budget now. And so I realize that's a little confusing, but that's why we have our Google Ads playbook that goes through this optimization process in super detail, just in case I did a terrible job of explaining how to go through that process. Now, once you've gone through that process, the next thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to look at your ads. So inside of your ad groups, look at your ads. And whether you're rotating indefinitely or you decided to let Google optimize for you, you're going to have an ad that does better than another one. You're going to want to look at click-through rates. So the ads that have the best click-through rate, you're going to want to keep them going. And then the ads that don't have a good click-through rate, just pause them, turn them off. Go select, pause, and then they will stop running. And then all your budget will go to the ad that has a good click-through rate. And then what you want to do is create another ad that's similar to the one that is working really well, and you're going to try and beat it. And then that is literally 60 to 70% of the optimization process is coming back every week or 2 and writing a new ad, which is why ad copywriting for your campaigns is so vitally important, because after your couple weeks of initial management and testing, all you're going to be doing is trying to improve upon the ad copy that you already have. So link in the description to our Google Ads Copywriter course that will actually help you with that process once you've run ads for a couple of weeks, if not a month or more. But you definitely don't have to stress too much about copywriting when you're just getting started, because you don't really know what works and you haven't gotten into that cycle yet. And so those are the main two things that you're going to want to do when it comes to testing your campaigns. Now, one more note before we get into locations, devices, and ad schedules and all that fun stuff. Make sure that you have 1,000 impressions, right? So if your ad has only showed up 5, 10, maybe even 200 times, don't change anything, because you need statistical significance. So you want at least 1,000 impressions on an ad group before you make any changes, and you want at least 100 clicks on an ad before you decide one is better than the other. So you definitely don't want to go into your ad campaign and say, oh, this one got 5 clicks and that one got 10, so the 10 one must be better, right? It's only been 15 clicks. It's too early to tell. So you want at least 100 for one of your ads before you start making decisions. That does it for the basics of optimizing your ad groups and then optimizing your ads. So I'll go ahead and collapse this. Comment below if you have any questions on this process. I read and reply to every single one. So now what we want to do is we actually want to go click on Show More in the left-hand side, and we want to click on Locations, because this is another area that we can optimize. So hopefully during your campaign settings, you follow the advice from this channel and you segmented out your location settings. If you didn't, you're gonna have to go do that right now. So we're going to click on columns here. I'm just going to come here, click on conversions. I'll reorder my columns, going to save it, and then click Save and Apply, because it's the same process, and then I'll go ahead and expand full screen. So what we're looking at here is a breakdown of impressions, clicks, conversions, based upon all the locations that we're targeting. And so this is why it's so important when it comes to setting up your campaigns that you choose individual segments of the broader area. Because if I had just chosen United States, then I would come in here and I would see one line, United States, cost impression, clicks, click-through rate, and it wouldn't tell me anything else. So that's why it's so important to segment your locations. But if I'd gone and segmented by zip code for the entire United States, I'd have thousands of lines, and then each line would have like one impression, and that wouldn't help very much, right? So there is a way to be too detailed, right? So here we have our states. Now, what you're going to do here on month probably 3, if not 6, it's going to take a while to get this data, right? So month 3 or 6, you're going to come in here. You'll have enough impressions, clicks, maybe some conversions to start making some decisions. Now, let's say it's been a couple of weeks, if not a couple months, and we come in here and we find Alaska is just off the charts in terms of clicks and conversions. It's doing super well. But then for some reason, Arizona, nobody seems to be clicking at all, or no one seems to be buying. So what we can do in the bid adjustment column here is we can do plus 50% for Alaska and then minus 50% for, let's say, Arizona and California, right? And so what this does is it tells Google, hey, I'm willing to spend more money for people in Alaska because I think that they're going to actually buy my stuff. And I will spend less money on people in California or Arizona because I don't think they're going to buy as much. And that's about as much location optimization as you want to do. Now, depending upon your business, it might make sense to say, you know what, Alaska, Alabama, and Florida are doing so well, I should make their own campaigns just for those states, right? Now, if your offer, product, service doesn't have anything to do with locations, then that might not make sense. But it's just one of those areas where you want to look and say, should I make a campaign just for this location because of how it's performing? Or should I make a campaign just for this location because I think that I can actually make ads specific to that location to increase my cost per click, right? So that's pretty much all you're going to want to do with your locations. Now, the next step is going to be devices. So we can come down here, click on devices, and of course we're going to edit our columns. I'll go way, way fast this time because you already know what we want to do here. So I'll go ahead and save our column set, save and apply. So we just adding conversions. And so here what you're going to want to do is look at how many clicks and conversions are you getting in the context of the platform. So a common example, you'll come in here and you'll find for some reason tablets aren't converting very well. I don't know why people browsing on tablets don't seem to buy as much stuff, but that might be the case in your particular instance. And so again, in the bid adjustment column, you could say -50, -75, or if you don't want to show up at all, just put -100%. And then your ads will not show on tablets at all, or desktop computers or mobile. Now, another situation that's common here is you'll find you'll have a lot of clicks on mobile and then nobody's actually doing what you need them to do. And so in that particular instance, you have two options. Number one, you could just say -100% on mobile and forget it. Or number two, you could take this campaign, you could copy it, you could come here and say -100 on computers, -100 on tablets, and then in your original campaign, -100 on mobile, so that you make a new campaign and you're only bidding on mobile, and that way you can start to optimize your ads and the landing page or the pages that you're sending people to specifically on a mobile device. Because sometimes someone browsing on their phone is going to be in a different behavior than someone who's, on their laptop, right? And so sometimes it makes sense to have one campaign for mobile viewers and one campaign for desktop and tablet, right? Most of the time tablet just awkwardly fits in there. But you'll get some data in here and you'll see which one makes the most sense to optimize for. So two more things here when it comes to optimizing your campaign, and this is going to be ad schedule and then calls. And so if we come down here to ad schedule, you can go ahead and actually tell Google the exact days and times of day you want your ads to show up. Now, there is a limit here. You can only make 6 time blocks per day. So if you are picking up the phone or you have people walking into your physical store, then you're going to want to set up 2-hour time blocks between the hours of 7 and whenever you close, or 9 or 10 or whenever you open, right? So that you can actually start to see what hours of the day are people going to most likely click or give you a phone call, fill out a contact form, and of course, make sure that your ads are only running when you're open or when you're actually going to have someone who can pick up the phone. And again, you can only make a total of 6 time blocks per day. So if you wanted to segment out your entire day, you would just do 4-hour time blocks. So you do 12 to 4 a.m., 4 a.m. to 8 a.m., 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., and so on and so forth. And so just keep in mind that you can't just have 1-hour chunks because you can only have 6 per day. So that does it for ad schedule. And then if you are doing phone calls, you can come down here to advanced bid, and we can click on that. And then you can also start making bid adjustments based upon how many phone calls you're getting. And of course, you can look at your phone call conversions as well. And so with that, that's all there is to it, to getting started optimizing your campaigns. Obviously, there is a plethora of other things that you could do here. But when it comes to your first couple of campaigns, your first couple of weeks or months, that's really what you're going to be focusing on. Comment below if you have any questions when it comes to optimizing your campaigns. So I'll go ahead and click back to our ad groups, and now it's just time to let the data roll in. So thank you so much for watching. You are an absolute champion making through this however long video it wound up being. I have no idea because obviously I took some breaks and there were quite a few cuts in there. So thank you so much for watching. Hit that like button to encourage more content like this. And of course, comment below with any of your questions. Lots of other resources in the description, links to setting up your YouTube ads, links to setting up Tag Manager, which is going to be your next step, along with our campaign builder and playbook to help you make the most of your campaigns and stretch your budget as far as possible. So hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dive guides just like this one, and ones that are a whole lot shorter. And until the next, keep building the business you love.